Well, we're here today with Bernice LaSalle. Bernice, thank you so much for doing this interview with us. It's really important to get these stories down, and you have a lovely home, and thanks for letting us come in and interview you. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
And my name is Jane Moore, and I'm here as a part of the Martinez Oral History Project, and Matt Parks and Brett Stevenson are here with me also doing the videoing. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about some of your husband Ernie LaSalle's history, and then also move forward into your time here in Martinez and how, you know, living from the 50s up until raising your children and things like that. So those are some of the topics that I just kind of wanted to see if we could find out more information about.
Okay.
I know, I think I understand that the LaSalle family had something to do with the property that is now known as Sky Ranch. Was that true? And was that property in the LaSalle family?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, how did they come upon that, having that kind of property?
Well, of course, when times weren't good, as they are not good now, Ernie's dad took a lot of the money that was owed from the business, from the store and all down there, and would take something in return, and he received some of that property in that manner.
So the Sky Ranch property came to the LaSalle family through a barter, almost
That's
barter
right.
system with the LaSalle store.
There's 300 acres.
Oh, okay, okay. Now, is it true that there were some pools or some ponds up there that were built? I don't know anything about that. Was that?
Well, it's spring water was the basic thing. That's the Alhambra water.
Okay, and
origin.
is that part of the pond system that was constructed?
Well, no, there was a lake up there.
Uh-huh.
And the Fish and Game in later years stocked it with trout.
So people fished out of it?
Yeah. And then the kids in the valley decided it was just great fun to take firecrackers up there and throw them in, and of course they'd blow the fish out and make a terrible smell after a while. It was frowned upon. So that came to a stop.
Was that still...
I can't blame it on the kids out there, though. It could have been any kids.
You know how kids can be.
Yeah.
That was still the LaSalle family property at that time?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was owned jointly with Ernie's uncle and his dad.
Okay.
And then when the two elder LaSalles passed on, the children, particularly of Ernie's uncle, really wanted to sell the property, and they had 5 children, and there was just Ernie, so we didn't want to cause any problems, so we agreed to sell too. But we wish we hadn't done that. So
you guys wanted to hang on to it. That must have been a hard thing.
It was. Mm-hmm. It was.
Did you get to spend a lot of time out there?
Well, we did. Of course, Ernie worked about 6.5 days a week, so he didn't have much free time. But we'd go out on Sunday and take the kids out and walk up to the lake, and it was just one of Mr. Pereira. I'm not sure which Pereira it was. They had cattle that they ran up there, and they had a dog that would go with them and help herd the cattle. And very often, as we were coming in, they were bringing the cattle down. They had some pens down by the road to put them in trucks and take them away. And the dog he worked so hard, he was panting, and he was hurting and nipping at their heels. Then when he was finished, Mr. Pereira would pat the saddle, and the dog would jump up on the saddle and straddle it, and he got to ride home.
How did you get to the entrance to that property?
It's right off of Alhambra Valley Road.
So you just drove right up?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And, of course, sometimes Ernie found people out there that really didn't belong there.
Yeah, what were they doing?
Well, we weren't really quite sure. We just didn't really want strangers around.
So
we finally put a gate across that with a lock on it.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Changed.
Yeah.
What kind of animals did you... There must have been lots of animals out there. Were there any mountain lions or anything? Did you ever see any?
I didn't spend that much time.
And no cattle. The cattle weren't disrupted?
No, the cattle were farther back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And how about, were there any, what was it like on the property? Any structures or anything, or what kind of buildings were out there?
Well, at one time it was a hot springs. There were hot springs out there too. And the people would go out, and I understand that they would have dances and picnics, and there was kind of a pavilion type thing.
That was built up?
Yeah,
it was there when you got the property.
I never saw that.
That was before you were married to Ernie.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So when you went out with the kids, what kind of buildings were out there? Anything?
None really. A couple of old barns,
Uh-huh.
but that was really about it.
So you just used to go out and
Yeah.
enjoy the lake and have picnics?
Yeah, and then of course there is oil out there, and so we would get these calls from the fellows that wanted to drill for oil. So
Uh-huh.
we kept the mineral rights, and they'd go out and they'd drill. And we got a call one night about I don't know, midnight, maybe before that time, and said, "We think we're going to bring it in tonight. You better come out." So we piled into the pickup truck and took some hot chocolate with us. It was cold, I remember that. And we sat out there, and they said, "Here it comes," and it went, and it was a bunch of blue gas, and that was it. That was the extent of our oil.
Did the kids go out with you?
Oh yeah, and they had the money spent about 10 times before we got out there.
That was the end of the oil.
That was the end of the oil.
That's funny. I didn't know that story.
Yeah, but it's not. Everybody accepts the fact there is oil there, but apparently it's just not very easy to get to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that would have really changed the whole valley had that.
I'm sure it would have.
Yeah, would have been a whole different place. Now, I know that I heard stories that Ernie's grandfather was a real horseman, and he was one of the leading breeders of the large Clydesdale horses in the county. Do you know anything? Those are huge work horses.
Yes.
How did they use those?
I never saw him. Well, of course, I never knew Ernie's grandfather.
Did you know any stories from Ernie about the
All
horses?
I heard was that he would bring the horses in, or a horse in, and tie it to the water spout outside the store, and then do whatever he had to do, and then ride it back to wherever he kept it.
Well, because I know your needlepoint that you have here next to you has the stable next to the store. What was that?
Well, it's not a stable. It's where they sold the grain and the food for the cattle and for horses.
Was it ever used as a stable back?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So the Clydesdales were the workhorses. Did they use in the Alhambra, the water, delivering the water?
Delivering groceries. Okay,
and that's why he bred them?
Yes, I would assume so. I never heard that he bred them, but yeah. Okay. And then they'd deliver they'd go to Port Costa, I guess that was all. They'd go out and, like going down the Carquinez down there. They didn't use them for water delivery at all, for the Alhambra water? No, they used trucks for that. Okay. No. Now, we all know the LaSalle family had the Alhambra Water Company from the beginning, which was the property you were talking about earlier? Is that where the water originated? Yeah, then they piped it down to the waterfront. And so he got the property through the trading for money owed to him through LaSalle's. Yeah. And there was a story, I think, back in the 1920s about the Coca-Cola Company. Can you tell us about that? Well, that was a pretty funny story. Yeah. Well, a gentleman came into the store and was looking for the owner of the Alhambra water, and he wanted to know if they were interested in perhaps bottling a product that they had that was a flavored drink. And Ernie's dad said no, he had his own, and he really wasn't interested in expanding. Well, turned out to be the developers of Coca-Cola. Oh my gosh. What did he think when he found that out? Well, I imagine he was a little bit sorry. Yeah, I bet everybody gave him a bad time about that at the dinner table. Yeah, that was before my time. Yeah, well, that was back in the 20s. Yeah. So wouldn't that have been something? Yeah, wouldn't it, though? Yeah. So he he made his own drinks from the water that came from Alhambra? Where did he bottle them? He bottled them down at the plant? What was that? Yeah, there was a bottling plant right down. We had a spur from the railroad track. So he just mixed the soda in with the... Well, I know when I grew up in Oakland, and we had a fellow that would come around selling us his flavored syrup, and you just added it to the water. Gee, it was real good. You didn't ever see the Alhambra water when you were growing up in Oakland? Because I know they had didn't they have distributing in Oakland and San Francisco? Yes, they did, and particularly for the World's Fair. Oh yeah, right. And that was one of the routes that Ernie had. In the summer, he would deliver the water, and he had to be off the island at, I don't know, something like 10 o'clock. In the morning? Yeah. because they didn't want the commercial vehicles on the island.
So he was delivering where, to the different sites, or?
Yeah, and he had Sally Rand's, whatever it was called, I don't remember, but he said they were always sleeping. He never saw them.
Oh, the fan dancer.
Yeah, the fan dancer. Oh, yeah.
Oh, so he was there early and the performers were still in bed.
Yeah.
That was his summer job between school?
Part of it, and then he delivered them to San Francisco.
That must have been something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but did you ever see the Alhambra water when you were growing up in Oakland?
Not that I remember, no.
You don't remember it?
No.
That would have been funny.
Uh-huh.
Now, the bottling plant down there sold, when did the LaSalle family sell the Alhambra water?
Ernie sold it.
Oh, okay.
And I can't.
I think it was like 1954. Does that sound right?
Probably. Yep.
And
yeah,
then a couple of years
possibly.
later, that plant burned down.
That's right.
Do you know anything
That's
about
right.
that?
No, I just know we were sitting up here watching it burn down.
You could see it from your living room window.
Oh, yeah.
And never found out why or anything?
I think it was, some homeless people.
Oh, okay.
Were sleeping in there. It was dry and warm.
Was it still being used to bottle the water? It's still a working building?
I'm pretty sure it was, yes. Yes.
Oh. Well, that must have been difficult to watch sitting up here.
Yeah, yeah.
Seeing it all in flames.
Yeah, and it burned to the ground.
And that was it?
That was it.
The hardware store was, the family home, as you told us with the needlepoint, that Ernie's father was born on the second floor. And where was that located? What streets?
Right where it is.
Can you tell us what streets they are?
Alhambra, Castro, Green, and what do they call it? Masonic?
Yeah, it was called Masonic. I don't think it is.
But it isn't. No, it wasn't. That's a very recent.
So that it's still in the same location. The building is still in the same location.
Oh yes, but they did remodel. They changed the entrance to Alhambra Avenue. It used to be on Castro Street.
Yeah, why was that? I did read that somewhere.
Well, I just wanted to modernize the store a little bit.
So they turned it all around?
Yeah, and they could, and I don't know if they could get easier access for delivery trucks and things, having it this way with it coming in on Castro Street rather than Alhambra.
Was that when Ernie was running the store? I think that was in 1964.
Oh, yeah.
So he and his dad did that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they turned it around to make it better access for the public?
Right.
Modernized? Yeah,
and then they had the beauty parlor upstairs on the balcony. They fixed that, and they had a bookkeeping office up there, and then they had a coffee shop downstairs next to the hardware store. And they modernized the grocery store.
And so when did Ernie take over running the store?
Well, he was running it when we got married in 1950. So I don't know, maybe. Yeah, he got out of when he got out of the service, and of course he got out, in probably 45 or 6 or 7. Well, I know he was out in 48 because that was the year we met.
You want to tell us how you met? That's a great story. I remember reading about that. I love that story.
Well, Ernie's dad was a Shriner, and so was my dad. And my folks took me on a trip to Alaska for my 21st birthday present. And Ernie's parents asked Ernie, we didn't know each other, asked if he wanted to go at some time. And he finally decided he'd, quote, have nothing better to do, so that's what he did. They went too. And it was I think it was a converted ferry boat. It wasn't like your cruise ships now, but we had a lot of fun. And we had the run of the ship. It was just the Shriners.
Oh, was it just a Shriner, a Shriner chartered ship? Oh.
And it really was fun.
Were there a lot of young people?
Oh, no. There was, oh, goodness. There was a college girl there. I remember she and I roomed together, and Ernie roomed with the tour director. And there were maybe 2 or 3 other young people. But, younger than Ernie and I.
So how did you first run into each other on the?
Well, they had a get acquainted cocktail party, and
being that it was your 21st birthday and all, I guess.
And I remember being out on the deck, and I remember when he came out and we started talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it true there's like that spark, that first time spark?
Well, we enjoyed each other's company.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't go anywhere, so you got to see each other every day.
Oh, yeah.
How long was the trip?
Oh, I guess probably maybe a couple of weeks.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe 10 days.
Good thing you got along okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, and it was nice for the families to meet as long as we did get married, because you don't have that pressure of meeting your future in-laws.
Yeah.
And they thoroughly enjoyed each other. It was just one of those very lucky.
Right place, right time.
Right, exactly.
Good for you. That's a great story. So you came back and got married in Oakland?
In Piedmont, yeah.
Right after that. And then didn't you move to Martinez right after?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started out on Henrietta Street.
Okay.
There's a duplex.
And I know that I was going to ask you, I think that you also worked at LaSalle's too, didn't you?
Yeah, but that didn't, when the children were in high school, I worked for the school district as a substitute office person. And then finally, I think the lady that was doing the bookkeeping had something else she wanted to do, and so I took over.
You took over LaSalle's bookkeeping?
Yeah.
And so you went down, you had your own schedule and you could go down?
Yeah, I could go down anytime I wanted to, as long as I got the work done.
How was it working for your husband?
Oh, we really didn't pay any attention to each other. I mean, he had his work, I had my work.
Worked out great, huh?
Oh, yeah, it was fine.
That's good. I was going to ask you also if you knew anything about that women's basketball team in the 1930s. I love that picture in the Martinez book that we have.
Well, the only thing I know is what I read in the article, and I got to be friends with Eleanor Algett. She was quite a bridge player, a good bridge player, and she taught me a lot. And so, but that's really all I know about.
What's her connection with the basketball team?
She was tall, I guess.
Oh, she played on the basketball team? Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And so LaSalle sponsored them. And do you know anything about where they played, or?
I have no idea.
It's just so unusual to have a women's basketball team in the 1930s.
Well, they must have had a kind of a league, with other businesses. They have bowling teams and things, so I see no reason why the basketball didn't. They had a good time.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you were friends with one of them through bridge.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. I also, I know that you moved here in the 50s, as you said, and you had your 3 children in the 50s.
Yeah.
They were, and so I wanted to find out a little bit about your life here in Martinez, and I know you said that you lived down on Henrietta Street by Susanna Street Park. Is that right?
Well, that's where we started out while we built this house.
And so how did you come to find this neighborhood, the Pine Street neighborhood?
Well, we knew we wanted to live in Martinez, and it was beautiful up here. It wasn't as built up as it is now, and Pine Street stopped at Shell Avenue.
Okay.
That was the end.
So you're almost at the top of the hill. What was the neighborhood like then in the 50s?
Oh.
Were there a lot of open lots and empty space?
That was down at the end of Andrews Drive. That wasn't built up. George Gordon lived across the street, George and Lucy, and the house across the street was empty. And Ernie Markey lived at the end of the cul-de-sac there.
Right here at your circle.
Yeah. And our neighbors, I think it was the Berry Hills, hadn't been in their house too long, and the same builder that built their house then contracted to build our house.
So this whole neighborhood was really built in the 50s.
Back of us. Pardon me?
The neighborhood was built in the 50s then?
Yeah, and farther on too.
So you're right, at the top of the hill.
But some of Dee Wicks, now they were here when we came. She's at the corner. The house across the street was here when we were here, and George and Lucy, and of course the Markey house. So it's pretty stable.
Your kids grew up in this house?
Yes.
Yeah, and I know when I was looking up some information about this, I realized that you had 3 kids in the 1950s. There were also 3 floods with Alhambra Creek in the 1950s. And you had a business downtown. Did your kids did they ever go downtown and play in the creek? Or, we've heard a lot of stories.
No, we wouldn't have them do that. No.
They weren't allowed to do that?
They were born in 51, 53, and 55.
Well, not in
so they were pretty little.
Do you remember those floods in 52? I think they were 52, 55, and 58.
I really don't, because it didn't affect the store.
It didn't, because the store was so far away?
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It did in later years.
Which floods did?
Oh, goodness, I don't remember the years, but the real bad one, the rowboat was going down Alhambra Avenue.
And the water was...
Yeah, well, and there's a slight rise going up to the front of the store.
Uh-huh.
And I don't ever remember Ernie using sandbags. But one time the electricity was out and everything else, so I was down there with the flashlight, and we passed out flashlights for the customers to use going in the store because they were buying lanterns and batteries and things like that.
Supplies.
But would only let in X number of people.
Uh-huh. So
and then when they left, then another group would go in.
And that was because of the flooding that was going on?
Yeah, yeah.
There were rowboats coming down Alhambra Avenue?
Rowboat.
Oh, a rowboat, okay.
I saw a rowboat. Oh, yeah, and then they go all the way down to the waterfront.
No guess what year that was?
No, really.
Okay, hadn't heard that one.
Can I just go back just like 6 more?
Yep. No problem. Thank you. Thanks, Brett. So did your kids play in any of the local parks, or what were the parks like? Especially I know Rankin Park was one of the ones that was built.
Yes, but that was later when they were in high school, I think.
Rankin Park?
No, I was thinking of the one out on Pleasant Hill Road.
No. Oh, yeah. No, Rankin Park I know had been around for a while.
Because it had the orchards out there.
The orchards, and there was something called Fairyland
oh, yeah.
in the 30s. But was that still around when your kids were little?
Oh, yes.
What was that like? That must have been really wonderful.
Oh, they had a train, of course, that was built for that. And it was fenced in with a wooden rail fence, the kids could climb over and stuff. So just like a typical, like Fairyland down at Lake Merritt in Oakland.
Lake Merritt. Did you take your kids over to the park a lot?
Not too much. They had enough kids in the neighborhood here to play with.
So they usually stuck around here and played?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the waterfront park was developed in the 60s. I know that. They started that in the 1959. They got the money for it, but it was
it took a long time.
It was pretty controversial.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about that one?
Well, I just remember that some people wanted it saved for building condos, apartments, whatever. And of course there was and it always seemed to be the new people coming into town that didn't know the history of Martinez. And
those people, what did they want? The new people wanted to build it up?
Yeah, but not really as a park, more for recreation, for housing.
So the new residents were more interested in the housing, and the older residents wanted to keep it as a natural.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like things haven't changed a lot, have they?
No, they haven't. But at least the park is well used now by so many people.
It is.
In different communities, they come here, and I think it's great.
Yeah, it is wonderful.
Yeah.
I remember reading about in the night, because of all that controversy, there was a group that was really instrumental in making the Fisherman's Park on the Old Rangers Granger's Wharf, excuse me.
Yeah.
And they were called the Women of the Waterfront. Did you ever know any of them or know anything about that?
Oh, yeah. We were talking about that memory class. I wish I had it. Nancy Fadden was part of that, I think.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, her name has slipped my mind.
What did they do? It was.
They were. They got the benches down there. That idea of having the benches with dedicated, and they used that, and to hang on to that boat down there that was what was it, a ferry boat? No, it wasn't a ferry boat.
Not the one that burned.
Yeah.
Oh, the old schooner that burned. The Forester.
Yes, yeah, that one. Just things like that.
So they really tried to keep the integrity of the park as
That's
a natural.
Right, kind of the old atmosphere, yeah.
You weren't a member of the Women of the Waterfront, though?
No, I was busy with other things.
What were you doing?
Oh, I don't know if you've ever heard of Children's Hospital.
I have, yes.
And their branches that they have. Well, we had our Muir branch. And we worked hard, and boy, we raised a lot of money for that.
How did you do that? What were the fundraiser?
Oh, well, of course, they had overall fundraisers that we were supposed to sell tickets to and things, which we did. But we usually had cocktail parties, particularly out at the Hoy House out in the Alhambra Valley. That was a wonderful place to entertain.
The Hoy House?
Yeah.
Was
he district attorney? And Fran Hoy was an attorney here in town. That was the son. Margie Pruitt is a granddaughter of the family.
And it was their private home?
Yes. Yeah. They had peacocks out there, and it was really just a treat to be able to. They were so generous to let us use it.
So you'd have fundraiser dinners or cocktail parties?
Yeah, right. And the town really supported us.
And then were you one of the members of the board or the auxiliary, or what did they
Yeah, we had about, maybe there were 20, 25 of us.
And then you took them, what'd the money go to?
To the Children's Hospital.
The one in Oakland?
Yes. Yeah.
How'd you get involved with that?
I really don't know. I mean, it just happened.
That is how things happen.
Well, I don't know. It was a well-known. The hospital was certainly well-known, and I suppose maybe somebody had been active in a branch down in Oakland or Berkeley, and when they came up here, they thought it'd be good to start a branch.
Is it still going on? Do you know?
I don't know. Shortly after I got out, most of us we'd sold enough tickets we couldn't look people anymore. They hate to see us coming, but we resigned, and then it went mostly Concord people, Concord women.
Yeah, well, definitely a worthy cause.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I know the other thing that's really interesting, and I think that you had family where you went to visit them on the ferries. The ferry system here was really important for transportation.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that Ernie's grandfather was one of the people who started one of the ferry companies, wasn't he?
Yes.
What was that?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that one?
No, I don't.
I think it was called the Martinez Benicia Ferry and Transportation Company.
Well, I know he did, and I'm sure have you talked to Lorraine Bray?
No, I haven't.
Well, if you do, because the Brays were active in that too.
And didn't you used to go by ferry to visit family? And did you use the ferry system down here?
Yeah, my sister lived in Marin County, and so the kids would stand at the window and say, "Here it comes," and so we'd pile in the car and meet the ferry as it got over here.
And then you'd put the car on the ferry and take it across?
Yeah.
Oh, how long was the trip? How long did it take?
Oh gosh, maybe half an hour or less. It isn't all that far, but it was fun.
Yeah. That was your Sunday fun?
Yeah.
When Ernie wasn't working?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the ferries ran until the late 60s or so, or the early 60s, something like that. So,
could be.
Yeah. The other one that happened, the change that happened a lot was Highway 4 was built. And how did that change your way of getting around or anything like that? That was in the 65.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything?
Well, it really
that?
didn't, because I was still going down to Oakland to see my parents. They were well along in years at that point.
How did you do that? How did you drive?
Pleasant Hill Road.
Oh, so you just continued to go that way?
Yeah, past Orinda. They were down in Piedmont.
So that was the Highway 4. Did the building of Highway 4 really separate Martinez from this side of, the north side of town to the south side of town? Was
Probably
that a change
for shopping, yeah.
Did you notice a change in the community at that time?
Well, people were going out of town. They were beginning to go out of town to shop.
They stopped coming downtown. Was there a change? Did you notice that in LaSalle's and the change in shopping patterns?
Yeah. We could see that a little store like ours wouldn't be able to compete very well, with the big, warehouse type stores.
What kinds of things how did your marketing change, or what you were selling changed?
Well, ours was strictly hardware.
Okay.
And of course appliances too. That kind of goes in with it. And people would just go to the bigger stores because sometimes they could undersell us, but if they couldn't find anything, they would come down to ours, and they'd usually find what it was they were looking for.
And the customer service was probably a lot better.
Yeah.
Were there some regular customers that just wouldn't
Oh, sure.
think of going anywhere else?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
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 And then Laird's became the other part. What can you tell me about the grocery store? How LaSalle's separated from Laird's with the grocery store? They sold it to Laird's.
I can't tell you when it was. It was when they remodeled the store. That was part of the remodeling reason also, for Laird's, to give them a good-looking grocery store. I don't know. I was busy with the children and the house and
it all just
a little
happened.
bit. Yeah, yeah.
I know that was. I think I remembered reading that Ernie said that it was just kind of more than he wanted to take on the food. It was time to separate the
That's
businesses
right.
out.
That's right.
So I think that was probably 64.
Yeah.
How did your shopping? Did you use downtown? What was downtown like? Is that where you usually did your shopping with the kids? And things like that.
Oh, they had one or two shoe stores, and they had Pennies, and they had Sears. Oh dear. Well, anything that you would want. And now it's hard to find thread.
Yeah. And so your kids were able to go downtown on their own?
Yes.
What kinds of things did they do down there? Were there movies or what were they?
Oh yeah. Well, there was. When Ernie was growing up, I think there were. I'm not sure about this. There might have been 2 movie theaters, and of course there was the one then. And they'd go down on Saturdays and go to the movies.
You let them go down there by themselves because it was safe and.
Yeah, they traveled as a group. Yeah. No, it was, and when I wanted something and I didn't have it, I forgot to get it. I'd send probably Peter, because he was the oldest, to go down and get it. And if I remembered something after he left the house, I'd just call down and say, when Pete comes in, would you have him get, a bottle of milk or something?
Did he ride his bike down?
No, he didn't have a bike.
Oh, okay.
No.
He walked downtown.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then back up the hill.
And then back up the hill.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very good. Well, it's kind of different now, but I do see a lot of kids downtown still.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
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 And that's good.
But I don't know if they're, because you recognized your customers, and I don't now. Well, maybe they still do.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they
I
still
hope
do.
so.
What are some of the changes that you really noticed? Just raising children, and what are some of the things that you really felt were the qualities of Martinez that you were happy to be here and have your kids be here?
Oh, one thing, when you went downtown, you saw so many people you knew. Just walking along the sidewalk, or the storekeepers, or whatever. They were all pleasant. It was a nice community, nice, friendly community, and I enjoyed that. And
then your work at the school district, you probably knew more people there too, also, right?
Sure, and the kids.
Yeah,
it was very pleasant.
So you were part of the Oakland Hospital group. What other groups were you part of that you?
There was PTA, of course. We all took part in that. And then there were a few women's organizations that are still here now that I belong to. And
that you're still active in?
Oh, yes.
What are those?
Yeah.
Which ones are those?
Well, one is PEO.
What's that?
Well, it's a philanthropic organization for education for women.
Oh, what's it stand for? P?
Well, that's just something that we keep to ourselves.
Oh, okay. So you provide financial support,
scholarships, grants. Yes.
To local students.
No, it's international.
Oh, wonderful! How did you get involved in that?
Well, I had friends that were in it, and I was asked to join.
So, is there another group that you're part of currently?
Oh, well, of course, I'm active in the church. And
which church do you belong to?
Congregational church.
Okay. Oh, right down the street. Okay. How long have you been a member there? Long time?
I was baptized with the children.
That's nice. Was that Ernie's church?
Yes.
Okay.
And his mother's.
Oh, and his family's
Yeah, she was
church.
one of the instigators of it.
Is that the one that has the house right next door to it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I remembered reading something. What was the story with that house? Do you know anything about it? It's right down by the junior high, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, it was a store that was being built by, what is it, Habitat for Humanity, and our choir director ended up buying it.
So that's currently who's there?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And before that, it had quite a history before that,
Well,
didn't it?
I don't know that.
Okay. I know that.
Well, it was the church office, but it was pretty bad shape.
Yeah.
It needed a lot of rebuilding.
Right. And so did your that was your family church from?
Yeah, yeah, and of course the church owned the house, and so our the members took part in rebuilding it.
With the Habitat for Humanity?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I noticed a nice change. It looks really nice. I
It
walked
does
by
look
there
nice,
the
yeah.
other day.
Yeah.
And it's right across the street from the junior high and the new school district offices.
Right.
Were you working in the old school district office? Is that where you worked when you were volunteering?
I went to any place where they needed somebody.
Oh, okay.
You know, if somebody got called in sick, then I'd go and fill in the best I could.
And where was the high school located then? That was in a different location.
Alhambra Avenue, where it is.
Where it is now?
Uh-huh.
But
Oh,
it
yeah.
was closer to the front. They remodeled it, so I
Yeah,
think it's...
yeah.
And then the junior high was where it is currently?
Yes.
Okay.
And Ernie went to school in kindergarten in the, what was the, I guess you call it the old school district office, before they remodeled it.
The brick one that they
Tore
just
it.
tore down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then where did your kids go to school? Or the elementary school, where did they go?
Martinez Elementary.
That was downtown?
Well, it's right across the street from the district office.
Yeah, and it's not really an elementary school anymore, I don't think.
No, I guess it isn't.
Yeah,
Maybe it's
no.
part junior high.
Yeah, it is part of the junior high.
Yeah.
So that was all very convenient for you.
Yeah, but I don't know. Isn't the kindergarten there too? Yeah.
I think there's a preschool there. Yeah. But the kindergartens are at the other schools now. Did you guys have any questions that you wanted to ask about the valley or... Matt, did you have any?
Covered it pretty good. It seemed.
Yeah. I just wanted to be sure that that you also had a chance to tell us anything that you felt that we should be sure and have down and know anything, or any of your feelings about, you know, your family or the town or what's going on or what went on when you were here.
Well, I'm awfully glad I went on that cruise to Alaska.
I think so. I think so. It's interesting how sometimes one little thing can really change your whole life around.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you ever think that you would end up in a town that was so small as Martinez is in the middle of the Bay Area?
Yeah, no. My dad used to come fishing here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you ever come with him when you were a kid?
No.
Okay.
That was just for the guys.
He came out recreational fishing?
Yeah, yeah.
So he knew about Martinez
yeah,
before?
and Carquina, Bay Point, is it? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. So he was already familiar with the town that you were going to make your home.
But I think one thing I liked about it, when I was shopping in Laird's, and Joe DiMaggio came in, and he always got his fishing licenses from Ernie, and he came in and he didn't make eye contact with anybody, and nobody bothered him. They just let him be, and I thought that was so neat that they would respect that, because he liked his privacy. And yeah, I was surprised he came here. Of course, he had a cousin here, and people respected his privacy.
Maybe that's why he liked coming here, was
I
because he
think
was
so.
left as a private
I think
individual.
So. Yeah.
Yeah. It must have been very hard to be so famous. And
Yeah, right.
well, I think part of the charm of Martinez is that it's a small town in the middle of a big area, yet it has that community feel to it.
And I hope it doesn't change.
I hope not too.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting how some of the, some of the battles we're still talking about, some of the undecisiveness is an issue that's always been.
I know. But I think if you live here for a while, you appreciate it for what it is, and to try to promote it just a little bit.
Try to keep it as natural as it can be with as much
Not try
activity.
to be like everybody else.
There you go. I think that's a good way to do it. Well, thank you, Bernice.
Oh, well,
I really
thank you.
appreciate it, and I think this will be really nice to have as part of our oral history project, and we really appreciate you sharing your stories with us.
It was a pleasure.
All right.